All right. Congress is that's our representative supposedly. We've noticed that in the last I don't know forever they really haven't been representing the people very good. It's not just with with this marijuana issue either, because we've seen the polling lately on marijuana, and it's 59% say legalize recreational use for adults. And then you have uh, medical marijuana, which polls at 92%. Yet there's still states where so-called representatives are saying, oh, we don't know about this medical marijuana. We're gonna wait until these other states have had it for a while and see how it goes, or we don't want to do it because of the federal government or whatever. Anyway, it's not just this issue. You look at issue after issue after issue. Like, who doesn't want mandatory paid sick days, sick leave? I know I would if I had a job working for somebody else and I got sick and I had to use up my regular vacation days to in order to get paid for those sick days. I mean, it's just absurd. Like, I think America treats the workers here pretty much the worst you can possibly treat them before you get into full scale third world country. I guess I'm just judging by that. But getting back to the issues, just about every issue, universal health care polls great, polls in the 70s and 80s. When and voters aren't that smart either. If you ask them if they like Obamacare, they're like, no, I hate Obamacare. But if you ask them if they're enjoying the Affordable Care Act, they'll tell you they're loving it. Anyway, Congress is trying to help us out here because we have this madman Jeff Sessions who, for some reason, thinks marijuana has violence around it. It does have violence around it. It's called the Mexican drug cartel when you have illegal black market. That's about it. There's never been any violence connected to marijuana ever. Marijuana doesn't make you a violent person. Um, Marijuana is basically always been known as a peaceful recreational substance. There's no violence around it. There's no gangster stuff going on because of marijuana. I mean, gangster stuff goes on with anything that's illegal. So maybe a little bit of it does, and you see these stories from time to time. But Jeff Sessions is trying to tell you that, oh yeah, yeah, if you owe somebody a drug debt, then they're gonna come and try to break your legs, and that's funny because marijuana really was never that. That was basically like a street. It's a street principle. It's not really related to the substance or the commodity being exchanged. If you owe somebody money and it's because of something illegal and they can't go to the cops or they can't sue you, of course they're going to come and break your legs. Why put marijuana in with all that? Legalize marijuana and we won't have to worry about anybody getting their legs fucking broken over marijuana. So we have Representative Garrett, Tom Garrett. He's a Republican. And he introduced legislation Monday that would federally decriminalize marijuana, take it right off the controlled substances list. I believe he's from Virginia, like the Richmond district, maybe. That I'm guessing on that one. So the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act of 2017 would take marijuana off the federal controlled substances list if it passed. The release stated that the bill would fulfill a responsibility to create a level playing field across the country. Now, a couple things. This is not the same thing that I did a report on a couple weeks back, where the Dana Rarenbacher from California, his bill is the Respect the State Marijuana Laws Act of 2017, which would also, that'd be pretty good if they would at least do that. But this is different. This would take the marijuana off of this controlled substances list, which is the best possible way that the federal government can move forward in this particular situation on this particular issue. And the desire to create a level playing field across the country is another thing where it's like, okay, you probably heard about the guy who came in from California with some medical marijuana, or maybe it was Colorado to Texas, and he got caught with his meds, and now he's looking at prison time. So yeah, we need to create a level playing field. If nothing else, make it so the federal government isn't trying to meddle with marijuana, because it just seems like the federal government has more important things to do. States can handle their own marijuana problems if there is any. All right, quote, statistics indicate that minor narcotics crimes disproportionately hurt areas of lower socioeconomic status. And what I find most troubling is that we continue to keep laws on the books that we do not enforce, Garrett said in the release. Virginia is more than capable of handling its own marijuana policy, as are such states as Colorado and California, and Washington and Nevada and Maine and Massachusetts, District of Columbia, and all the other places where marijuana was recreationally legalized. The bill was originally introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent from Vermont, back in 2015. And if I had this channel back then, I would have reported on it. But I did do a story about how Bernie has always been the best candidate possible for marijuana legalization. Now, his legislation died. But remember, he's a senator, so it's a little different when you're a senator. As a senator, you have to put this thing into a committee, and it's usually a bipartisan group of senators that look at the thing, and then they tug of war it until it either dies in committee or they come up with an agreed way to move it forward so that it can go to the broader body of the Senate for a vote. Now, when the House brings a bill up, then sometimes it goes into a committee, sometimes it don't. Sometimes it gets called to a vote. Sometimes it just gets called for a quick vote to see if it needs to go to a committee. Because a quick vote can, if it's like a landslide one way or another, someone might require it to go to a committee. If it's a pretty close vote, an almost tied vote, then that usually says, hey, then this thing was hammered out pretty good. I mean, both people are fighting for their position. Anyway, he is joined by Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat representing Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District, and she is the lead original co-sponsor on Garrett's legislation. So, she's a Democrat, he's a Republican. Right away, we have a bipartisan piece of legislation hitting the floor of the United States Congress. That's getting to be hard to believe. That's getting to be a rare thing. So just that in itself is pretty cool. And I know we can grab a handful of people from both sides of the aisle that are for this. Jeff Sessions himself said, hey, you guys got to, if you don't like the laws that the federal government enforces, or, you don't like what's on the controlled substances list, talk to Congress. That's who you're supposed to go to. Well, now we are talking to Congress. Now we have to hope that Paul Ryan lets this thing go to a vote, and that's usually never a good thing to hope for. Garrett's bill comes after U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said there's more violence around marijuana than people would think. There isn't. Everything Sessions said was horse shit. He basically connected marijuana to the opioid crisis that we face in this country. And, there's no way you can do that because there just ain't. 80% of all heroin addicts purport that they started with opioid pills, Vicodins and shit like that. So to call marijuana a gateway, or to say that there's some kind of violent gang activity around it, or to say any of the other things that Mr. Sessions, with his, crusty old dinosaur rhetoric from the 1950s, had to say about marijuana is all bullshit. The only reason he's saying anything is because he's got to say something to justify any kind of action that they might do.